Well, welcome back to another episode. And we've had all sorts of juicy topics flowing in from the question boxes. And so I am going to get into one of them today, and I'm going to read the question as it came through to me. And then we're going to go into a big old rant spiel on the topic. I'm really excited about this one. It is super spicy. It is mainly for women. So sorry, boys, might be time to tune out or stick around. You might learn something. So the question is around women's sexual empowerment. And I am of many minds on this topic. So it's going to be really fun. And hi, everyone jumping in. So the awareness for those that cannot reach orgasm during sex, and why, if it's a man, they would go to a doctor and get something to support them, but there seems to be nothing for women. And I feel that this happens more than is acknowledged, and I would love to lift the taboo off this subject and get women empowered in their sensuality. So that's the question. So here we go. I've never had this problem. I'm like an orgasming ninja. I can do it anywhere, anytime, with anyone if I need to. And that's not necessarily a great thing. And this is partially because, and I know now from all of the unconscious processing work that I did in my breakthroughs and in my journey to become a coach, and these are processes I utilize in my practice now as well. I know that I've carried a lot of sexual themed stuff from past lives, past generations. And so I'm the one who's breaking a lot of the patterns of shame and guilt and grief and betrayal and behaviors that really don't serve us women if we're wanting to be empowered. And this is fun because over the last 30 years, our generations have also been an experiment for a new type of female empowerment from the sexual revolution and fourth wave feminism, which really hasn't worked in many ways. So, and I've also spent a lot of time with myself. Like since 2011, I've been spending a lot of time intimately with myself, simply because I've not actively dated anyone since. I thought I was dating people. We all know the story. They weren't dating me exclusively. This was the birth of situationships and all the things. We're not going to get into that right now. But I spent so much time with myself from when I left my long-term relationship in 2011. And I did that without pornography, without toys. It was just me and my body and my mind. And it's still like that to this day. And I have experimented here and there, but none of it has been as incredible and as powerful and explosive and connected as just me with myself. And in that time spent, that intentional conscious time spent over many, many years, and it doesn't have to be many years, and I'm not going to recommend that. However, there's so many of us who have been programmed, have expectations, have things in our mind saying someone else is supposed to do this for me. And we're going to get into that. There's so much going on and so many uncommunicated expectations that it can get really cluttered and confusing in our minds, and then we lose our connection to our body. And in spending intentional time with myself, I got to start recognizing what stops the flow or the connection, what slows things down, what works, what doesn't, what helps, what doesn't, and really starting to find out that it's got nothing to do with your partner to make you orgasm. When you're in tune with yourself and able to be associated in your body in that moment and be able to dismiss any thoughts along the way of like, oh God, what do I look like? Oh, what is he thinking? Oh. When you don't have that, when you can recognize it if it does come in and choose to dismiss it and come back into the moment, then there's hardly anything that even has to be done. Just the two people moving together, these two connected humans, is enough to create that build and release. It's insane. It's phenomenal. And I'm excited for anyone who hasn't experienced it to do so. And one of the first things I'm going to touch on is the story. Literally saying the words, I cannot reach orgasm. Throw the story the fuck out. Throw it out now. Like, remove those words from your vocabulary altogether. Start telling a new story. My body is learning how to have incredible, connected, explosive orgasms. I am learning new forms of intimacy every single day. I spend time every day connecting with my body. Tell these stories instead. Tell these stories instead. Because here's the thing, is we could go, why haven't the medical system provided support for women or therapy for women to help them orgasm? Because they don't know anything about it and they don't care if they can't medicate it. Men are going to the doctor and getting medication if they have a problem, right? Which may help the symptom. However, drugs for anything are destroying the gut, the immune system, and quite possibly and most definitely the reproductive capacity currently or in the future. Looking at our reproductive numbers is kind of horrifying. This is not a solution for men in any way, shape, or form. It's the same work for men as for women, but it's also quite different because we've come from different evolutionary programming and we've come from different lines of belief systems and installations and programs. So I'm not going to speak into the men's work today because I am not a man, but I can definitely recommend a whole bunch of amazing coaches for men if they are wanting to get holistic, natural support for any problems in the bedroom. Next, you don't actually have to reach orgasm for sex to be wildly fulfilling and pleasurable. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, okay. And like I said, when the two people can come into this beautiful space and be associated in their bodies, be connected, mind, body, soul, you could sit opposite your partner and it could be so electrifying that you don't even need to touch each other to be completely fulfilled and connected and pleasured. It's insane. And to get towards that, there's different layers, right? We've already talked about the story. Then we want to look at, well, how is the story formed? What is your sexual past like? What are some meanings that have been attached to the act throughout your life? How was it viewed growing up? When did you decide that you're supposed to have a different experience to what you've been having? Where did that installation, that belief get installed? Like, who are you comparing yourself to? What are you comparing yourself to? Because all this is getting in the way of having the experience that you want to have. Is the expectation that's been imprinted from somewhere, and usually it's not from a very healthy place. And then the next is, do you have, or are you seeking to be with an exclusive partner to create trust, to create safety, to create a space to explore? Or is there a lot of hooking up going on? Is there a lot of disconnection in relationships? Because sex is the most sacred thing that we have, and it has been turned into a transaction. So no wonder people are increasingly not able to experience the incredible levels, and you have no idea. Like, I haven't even experienced how many more levels there are to this, because I want to do it with an intimate, connected, loyal partner that I'm with long term. But starting to think about, okay, well, what are the quality of my relationships? If you're not in a relationship right now, how can I start approaching finding a partner in a new way that's going to create exclusivity, trust, safety, space to explore, a foundation of like something solid? Because empowerment and sensuality is a decision. It's a choice. And in that decision and choice, all the resistance for you specifically is going to come up. And when resistance comes up, this is the thing that we do in all things that I like. I work mostly with women in business, but funny enough, we always take time to look at sexuality, sensuality, and their relationships, because all of that impacts whether they're going to make money or not. Because what is sex? Sex is creation. It creates life. That is why it's so freaking sacred. It is two people coming together, completely becoming each other to create a life, especially these days where no one's actually using proper protection. So there's more and more of a chance of it. So there's more and more actual connectivity happening, whether you like it or not. We're going to get to that. But the more we make this decision and this choice to start feeling more empowered in our sensuality in whatever shape that takes, your resistance is going to come up. Your pushback in your own mind and your programs and your consciousness is going to come up. You're like, oh, I don't like that. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, that feels wrong. Oh, that person did that thing wrong. Whatever it is, the stories, the beliefs, the reactions are going to surface as you start moving in a new direction. This is basic neurology. It's basic brain science. When you start going in a new direction that is unfamiliar to the brain gets freaking scared and it goes, we don't know what the fuck is over there. You might die. So you're not allowed to go there. We're going to find every reason possible for you not to go there. And we're going to throw up all the things that might have happened in the past to stop you from going there. And it's really convincing. Even if there, the place you want to go is ultimate happiness and beautiful sensuality in your relationships. So you have to know that when you make the decision and the choice and you start to change, that your mind's going to be really backed up against you. But that's the key. That resistance specifically, actually tuning into that and paying attention to that, is going to be the things that you tweak and change and face off with sometimes to move through it to actually experience what's on the other side. Next layer. Ladies, do you hold resentment to men? Any men? Your ex? Guys at work? Your boss? Your dad? Men in general? Your best friend's ex-husband? If you are holding resentment to men as a whole, your body is not going to want to relax around any man, which means you're not going to be able to really physically enjoy any experience with a man. So it's about coming back into love for men. And in this day and age where so much of the world is screaming to hate men, that can be an interesting one. Except that without men, we literally wouldn't have a society. And every single thing that we take for granted that makes our life easy day to day, including the phone that you're watching me on, most likely, or listening to me on. And so do you hold resentment to men? One, do you hold resentment to yourself? Do you have suppressed experiences or emotions or challenging things that you've just pushed down? Because when we suppress emotion, it's going to start leaking out in other places, and it's going to show up as numbness. It's going to show up as disconnection in relationships. It's going to show up as disassociating from our body and being so much in survival that we're not even physically in ourselves. So starting to recognize any of the stickiness, any of the negativity that exists within us, and start to challenge it, to change it. This brings us more into our experience, into our body. And then what are our expectations of sensuality? When did you learn how it's supposed to be? From whom or from what? Because we're, as I said, the generation that's been a big experiment for a whole new world of mass-produced pornography, all sorts of horrific advice in all the magazines when we were growing up, in things like OnlyFans, in the sexual revolution, the pill, that has created this whole new world, which has made sex transactional instead of sacred. And a lot of the times we may have an expectation of what it's supposed to be like, feel like, look like, sound like, taste like, because of an installation from something that probably isn't very healthy. So starting to ask, what is my actual expectation in every sense of the word? Think about all the senses. When did I decide that? Where has that come from? What am I comparing to? Next layer. Do you have a natural menstrual cycle? Because I know this is a whole other podcast. And I forget her name, but she was interviewed a lot on Chris Williamson's podcast, Modern Wisdom. There's a whole research study that's been done on the pill and hormonal birth control and how it pertains to our experience sexually, but also our experience of attraction, our experience of detraction if we stop taking it, and that's pretty scary. There's so much. I'm not even going to get into it, but do you have a natural cycle? Because if you don't, this is going to be playing a huge role. Remember at the beginning, I said how any medications are creating more problems than they are creating solutions. So this is the first thing we get to look at. And then from a story point of view, when it comes to our cycle, when it comes to our creative center, which is where you're choosing to let or not let someone into, including yourself, what is the story you tell about yourself, about your reproductive system, about your vagina, about your womb, all of your body? Do you love your body or do you hate your body more often? Do you love when you get a period or do you go, oh God? Do you nurture yourself and make sure that you work out any problems that you might be having? Because by the way, ladies, you're not supposed to have cramps. You're not supposed to have all these symptoms with your cycle. If you are, that is a massive warning sign that there is something major developing that is wrong. And it is so important to start to look at it now. And if you have questions about that, reach out for me. I have a whole other business protocol that you can follow, which is super cheap. But what is the story that you tell yourself? Because I can't even tell you how many times women have come through LRA and we always spend some time on physical and mental wellness because you're the leader of your business. And in order to lead that long term and make lots of money and impact and all the things, you want to make sure that you're healthy and feeling great. And I cannot tell you how many of these women are already doing so much for their cycles and for their bodies in every different way. However, they're still telling themselves that story of like, oh, I hate when my period comes. I wish I didn't get a period. Right? So what are you telling your brain to tell your body? I hate that part of myself. I don't want it to work. Don't work. Please don't work. Oh God, why is it working? Stop it working. Right? So when we're constantly telling our brain to tell our body that we hate that part of ourselves, we don't want it to work, we hate when it does, what do you think it's going to do? It's going to have all sorts of problems because we're creating cortisol release, which is creating inflammation, which is creating problems in the whole body. And you know what your body is going to do when it's stressed? The first thing your body shuts down when your whole system is stressed is your reproductive system, because it does not need it to survive. The brain is like, cool, we don't need to do any of that. We don't need her to have a period. We don't need her to ovulate. We don't need her to menstruate. We don't need any of that. Menstruate and period are the same thing. You know what I mean? We don't need any of that to work, to survive. We need to send all of our resources to the lungs, to the heart, to the blood, all of that. And we wonder why we're having so many problems with fertility. It's because us women are hating ourselves so much for our incredible difference as women. And when I challenge these clients to change their story and tell themselves something beautiful about their periods, about their cycles, about even symptoms that are happening, sending love to their womb space, sending love to that whole area, sending gratitude, really connecting. Within a couple of weeks, I'm getting a message every single time of, oh my God, I just got my period and I didn't have any symptoms and I didn't even know it was coming. What the hell? Yeah. Because when we start to release the stress from the story, we release pressure from the body and we start to have a new experience. And this is such a huge factor when it comes to experience in the bedroom with a partner. So do you have a natural cycle? How is your cycle symptoms wise and health wise? Address that and start to flip everything on its head. Now, a lot of our generation's sexual programming has come from the sexual revolution and this global effort to produce mass amounts of online pornography that has essentially, evidently now, made most men disrespect most women and made women both disrespect themselves and become super disconnected from themselves, because a lot of them have now done things or been led to do things or chosen to do things that maybe they didn't want to intuitively because it's pretty disconnected from what sex can really be. And it can be so much more phenomenal than anything you'll see in a porn movie. Sex is sacred. It is something to honor. It creates life. And we become the people we share ourselves with. I'm going to say that again. We become the people we share ourselves with. And especially for men and women, it's very different from a hormonal chemical level. And this is something I was so obsessed with. And I did a whole masterclass on it many years ago called Sexual Energy Empowerment, which you can access inside the Lovely Radical Academy or Lovely Club. And it goes into all of the science, but also the like energetic and spiritual, like quantum level of a sexual interaction. And at the end of the day, we're binding ourselves to another energetically with bacteria, fluids. We're binding ourselves emotionally. And for women, because we are the ones being entered, they are putting all of their stuff emotionally, energetically into us, and they're leaving it there. The next layer of that is that we have evolutionary programming as women to need to procreate as soon as we've had sex with a man. So whether or not you want to have children consciously, your body does. Your body has like this overwhelming need to do that. And that need hormonally and chemically gets even more heightened when you are intimate with someone, even if it's someone that you don't know and you're never going to see again. And this is what makes women, quote unquote, crazy and clingy, because they're confused and their body's going into survival because the person that they just bonded with, that their body just went, oh my God, okay, we're going to make babies with this person and be with this person forever. The body is doing that. Even if your conscious mind that is in this lifetime is not, we all have that evolutionary programming that cannot be changed. And so knowing this, if you are going to go and sleep around, can at least help you become less crazy, because you can know and preempt the fact that you're going to get super, super intense after being with someone, and you can go and, I don't know, go for a run or do something afterwards. However, I highly recommend to start treating it as sacred if you're wanting to have phenomenal experiences with your partner sexually. So this has just been the tip of the iceberg of unpacking all the layers of this. And like I said, there's a great masterclass inside the club and the academy, or you can obviously come and work with me privately on this because it's one of my favorite things. I love that a lot of the time when I get my clients to just start reconnecting with their husband or their partner, or going out and actually finding a beautiful conscious partner, their business explodes because it just changes everything when we approach this in a new way. But some beautiful activities that I know I've done over the years, especially when all of my sexual trauma was coming up in my, like the abuse, the assault, the harassment, all the things was coming to the surface for me to deal with like 5-6 years ago. These were some beautiful practices from the spiritual world that I loved, that I really loved implementing, and I still implement from time to time to this day. And so naked mirror work is really powerful. And this ties back to like, how do you actually feel about your body? Can you choose to love it in all its glory of whatever it is right now, knowing that if you want to get healthier, get fitter, get more balanced hormonally, that's great. But really connecting with yourself in the mirror with nothing on and choosing to love her exactly as she is right now. Eye contact mirror work is incredible. Affirmations, holding yourself. So practicing your love languages or all the love languages on yourself. Then you can be experimenting with your erogenous zones. And this doesn't have to be to get to orgasm, right? Which was the main question. This is about taking it slow. This is about treating it as sacred, because when you're practicing more non-sexual intimacy alone and with a partner, it's going to build up so much more within both of you that the actual act eventually will just be beyond, and it'll probably be too much. I know that there's been experiences, especially with a dear lover of mine from years ago, and we still laugh about it when we catch up today. Where I orgasmed and it just kept going and going and going and going, and we ended up laughing so much because it wasn't stopping. I can't believe I just shared that on a podcast. Anyway, but practicing non-sexual intimacy, and you can Google this, you can come into my programs, we learn all about that. But then when you are with a trusted partner, you know that it's not just about, okay, we're going to kiss, we're going to fuck, then we're going to go to bed. It's like, well, what if we just gazed into each other's eyes and you kissed my neck for half an hour? And then I'll probably want to do all sorts of things to you without even being prompted, right? When you get to know yourself and you know all of your zones and all of the things that you love and that make you feel connected to yourself, then you can share that with another, and then you can explore that together. And this creates relaxation in the womb space, in that whole creation center, which is all connected to your good feeling bits, which reactivates them, especially if they've fallen dormant or they've gone numb, because you're creating safety, you're creating trust, you're creating connection, and you're saying, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, right? Change the story. This is the most important. There's no point in doing any of the other stuff if you're telling a story that it's not working, if you're telling a story that you're not safe, if you're telling the story that you can't orgasm, you're just ruining it. So start telling a new story, even if that new story doesn't feel real, even if you feel like you're gaslighting yourself, even if you feel like you're telling it and you're like, but it's not happening. But look at the evidence of life right now. It's not working. It's not working. It's not working. Quit it. And if this is challenging for you, that's a lot of what my breakthrough processes are about, so that we can clear out all the clutter of the old programs so that creating a new program is a lot easier. Rejecting hookup culture, quitting pornography. Oh my God. And I recommend stepping away from all of the additional tools. Can you bring it back to just yourself? It's great, and there's all sorts of reasons for them. And if you're going to use anything, I love the yoni eggs that you can get. They can be super powerful just for creating connection in there. I don't really use mine much, but it's a thing. But rejecting that disconnected type of sexual engagement. Meaningless sex is a great way to stack the belief of the program that's your problem. So set a higher standard for that connection. Get clear on who you are, that connection with yourself, what you actually want in a relationship and a partner for your life, for your future, and for yourself. Work on that. And that way you can communicate. And this is, again, this is pillar 4 in the academy. We do so much deep diving into relationships because they are the creation center. They are the activator. They are our love. They are the most powerful emotions that we can activate when done well, when done in a beautiful, healthy way. And when that happens, more money gets to be made because everything gets released stress-wise. So rejecting this disconnected culture of just like fucking back and screwing men just without feelings, because none of that is working. It's a failed experiment. Most women are miserable. 80% of women who are childless wanted to have children, but they follow the program of, you know, hooking up and working on their careers. So we're going to have to, we already have this mass population of depressed women in their 40s and 50s who wanted kids and couldn't. Like, there are so many horrifying numbers from my study the last couple of years. And that doesn't mean it's over. There is so much that can be created and explored in this space, but we need to start coming back into our power as women and creating a whole new definition of feminism, femininity, being a woman. And this is why I dub it the New Earth Femme, the New Earth being the beautiful book by Eckhart Tolle, and like this new wave of creating new programs and new standards together, connected, men and women on the same freaking side, right? And date yourself weekly. This is something that I set when people are in relationships. You need to be having at least a weekly date, and you also need to be having at least once a week that you are dedicating to making sure that you're across all the things that might stress you out if you don't pay attention to them. So this applies for working on yourself, but also working on a relationship. And this is the Jordan Peterson thing. So, and the way I teach relationships is the only way I want to, which is all the learnings that I've done from all of the most incredible, beautiful, happy, and wildly successful couples in the world that have been together for at least 20, 30 years. So that's who I'm learning from. That's who I've learned from the last decade. And that's what I apply in my teachings. And that's what works so freaking well every single time. We've had a few people, we've had 3 couples go from being broken up to engaged this year. And while their businesses are doing well and their finances are flowing better than they were ever before. And so it's really awesome to see. And that's just the ones who've gotten engaged. Everyone's having better relationships, which is great. And that comes down to such basic things. Communication, of course, and I don't have time to get into all of that today, but date yourself weekly and make time every week to actually get across your money, your health, your basic day-to-day stuff, schedule stuff if you need to, prep stuff if you need to. We all want to look at how many ways we can reduce stress levels so that your body can do what it wants to do, what it's made to do, so that it can soften, so that it can feel safe, even if you don't have a relationship that feels safe, even if you don't have a life environment that feels stable right now. Date yourself weekly and spend at least 90 minutes with yourself every single week, somewhere or broken apart, to work on your life, your goals, your stability, and your health. And let yourself love it. Make time for it. So important. And so hopefully that's been a fun little rant on all the different things that I think about that. And I definitely could do 10 hours talking about the programming from the last 30 years. I could do a lot more talking about hormones and birth control in our cycle, but we'll have to leave that for another day. And if you found this helpful, make sure that you leave some love in the comments, or come and have a chat with me about your personal situation. And I will see you all on the next one.